Good evening. I call today's Plan Commission meeting to order on October 19th, 2022. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker?
Here.
Commissioner Schenk?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Here.
Commissioner Flores? Here. Commissioner Wright?
Here.
Commissioner Campos? Here. Vice Chair Cooper?
Here.
Chair Ali?
Here, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the July 20th, 2022 and August 17th, 2022 meeting?
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Shank. Are there any corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none. Minutes stand approved. Okay, first item on the agenda today is a special use permit for a cannabis dispensary, Ivy Hall, located at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. The applicant is Gregory Elliott, project number 422.22. May I have a motion to open this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker?
Here.
Commissioner Schenk?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper?
Yes.
Chair Ali?
Yes. Mr. Eastman, you have the floor.
Thank you. Tonight, I'm here to present an approval for a special use permit for a cannabis dispensary in order to allow a cannabis dispensary at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. The subject property currently comprises approximately 1.27 acres and is currently developed as a sit-down restaurant, commonly known as Golden Chopsticks. It is zoned B4 Commercial Urban Development. Access to development would be available via right-in, right-out off Bolingbrook Drive to the east, as well as a full access drive off Brookview Lane to the west. There currently is adequate parking for the proposed use. Per the zoning ordinance, a dispensary is not a permitted use within the B4 zoning district. As such, the applicant is here before you to request a special use permit to allow the said dispensary, commonly known as Ivy Hall, at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. Per the applicant, the dispensary would be licensed by the state of Illinois to acquire cannabis from licensed cannabis business establishments for the purpose of selling or dispensing cannabis, cannabis-infused products, cannabis seeds, paraphernalia, or related supplies to purchasers or qualified registered medical cannabis patients and caregivers. Per the applicant, the proposed use would acquire a photo ID to enter and be limited to customers that are 21 years old or over, according to the state statute. The building would be outfitted with enhanced security features, including perimeter alarms on all entry points, glass break and shatterproof windows, panic alarms and buttons, and high-resolution cameras installed on the building and surrounding site to provide unobstructed video surveillance of all enclosed dispensary areas and outside areas as well. The hours of operation would be Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Per the applicant, the proposed dispensary would employ approximately 40 full and part-time employees. For any given shift, this would include a general manager, assistant general manager, a sales personnel, and on-site security. Staff recommends approval of a special use permit for a cannabis dispensary, commonly known as Ivy Hall, to be located at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. That concludes my report. The applicant is here tonight, and they would also be presenting some information, obviously, that hopefully will be helpful to you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Easton. Please come on up.
You know what, if you want, I can stand over here and I can kind of page through it for you if you want.
I was
It's up to
really,
you.
I was really hoping I'd be able to swipe.
Yeah, as long as you got it. I'll stand over here just in case.
In case my swiping is good. Do you want to swear all of us in? We've got
everybody
several
gonna be
members of our
speaking?
team.
Whoever's going to
Just
speak.
Wow.
You swear to tell the truth at this public hearing?
I do. Good evening. My name is Andrew Scott. I'm with the law offices of Dyke & McGossett here on behalf of the petitioner. As you can see, we've brought our whole team with us to sort of be able to answer any questions and talk a little bit more about some of the items that Mr. East would talk about, just to get in a little bit more about the traffic, operations, security measures, things of that nature. With me this evening are Adam Rack with WBK Engineering. He is our land planner. Also this evening are Greg Elliott and David Berger. They're both with the applicant. And also Dan Farrell with Silver Star Protection Group. Dan and his team obviously provide security, and he'll be able to talk a little bit more about security operations in and around the dispensary. But I'm going to have Adam come up, just talk about some of the land use and planning issues, access, parking, things of that nature, and then we can move into, you learn a little bit more about Greg and his team, and then finally we'll talk about security, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Try it.
Did it work?
No.
No, I might have to page through for you.
Okay. You don't want me yelling at you?
No, you're good.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Adam Rack, last name spelled R-A-K, of WBK Engineering at 116 West Main Street in St. Charles, Illinois. I am here on behalf of the applicant to request a special use approval to establish an adult use cannabis dispensing organization at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. As a reminder, the village's ordinance defines a adult use cannabis dispensing organization as a facility operated by an organization or business that is licensed by the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation to acquire cannabis from licensed cannabis business establishments for the purpose of selling or dispensing cannabis and other cannabis-related products. Next slide, please. This slide here is a location map. As you can see, it's probably very familiar to all of you. The subject property is identified and located at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive. For reference, to the north, the main east-west road is Lily Cash Lane. Along the east side is Bolingbrook Drive, and just off the screen to the south, you can start to see Interstate 55. Next slide, please. From a zoning perspective, the subject property is located in the B4 Community Urban Development District. The Community Urban Development District is designed to permit general commercial uses, both retail and non-retail. As you all are familiar, this segment of Bolingbrook Drive is a commercial and retail corridor, major commercial and retail corridor in the village of Bolingbrook. And as Matt Eastman said earlier, the adult use cannabis dispensing organizations are allowed only via special use in the B4 district. Next slide, please. Next exhibit illustrates zoning compliance. The applicant is not proposing any exterior modifications to either the building or to the site, other than state statute, video and surveillance, and signage, which is also required by the state of Illinois guidelines, IDFPR as well. So therefore, the site will remain compliant with existing bulk, yard, and density requirements for development in the B4 zoning district. Next slide, please. From an existing land use standpoint, a reconnaissance was completed of all land uses within 500 feet of the subject property. The surrounding development includes various commercial, retail, and office uses that are typically found along similar commercial corridors. In terms of compatibility with surrounding area, you're going to see a lot of similar retail uses that are typically found in B2 and the B4 districts in the immediate area. Adult use cannabis dispensing organizations are allowed via special use in the B2 district as well, so very compatible there. And from an operations standpoint, the proposed special use will operate nearly identical to other retail uses in the area, as Matt Eastman said, with the exception that they will require photo identification and confirmation that each customer is over 21 years of age. As such, the proposed special use will reuse the current site plan, footprint scale, and style that is familiar with the overall neighborhood character as it stands today. Next slide. Cannabis dispensary uses in the village of Bolingbrook, there are special criteria for these types of uses. The first one being that it cannot be located within 1,500 feet of another existing dispensary. The nearest dispensary is actually in Romeoville, and it's located over almost a mile and a half away. In addition, a cannabis dispensary may not be located within 500 feet of the property line of a pre-existing school. There are no pre-existing schools within 500 feet of this location. And the cannabis dispensary may not have a drive-through facility. Drive-through facilities for cannabis uses are not allowed in the state of Illinois, and this one will not propose a drive-through facility. Next slide, please. Site design, site access, and circulation, briefly touch on that. There are a number of access points in the area, both off of Bolingbrook Drive to the east and via Brookview Lane to the west. Primary access will occur via right in, right out off of Bolingbrook Drive, with direct access to the subject property occurring in the northwest and southwest corners off of Brookview Lane. Next slide, please, site circulation. From a site layout standpoint and site circulation into the site, off of Brookview Lane, a two-way, the main entrance is going to be that southern access point. You will enter into a 24-foot wide drive aisle with head-in parking on both sides. That perimeter drive lane or parking lot drive lane goes along the southern and eastern side of the property before it transitions to a one-way diagonal head-in parking along the north side of the property. That makes the northern access point primarily suited for egress only. However, if traffic does come in that access point, they can come immediately south and enter the southern drive aisle from that location as well. So there's nothing stopping them from doing that. Next slide, please. As Matt said as well, there are 72 parking spaces currently located on site designated for sole use of the proposed special use. Based on staff's report, there is adequate parking located on site to serve that special use. Next slide, please. This is the floor plan of the building, and Greg will be able to tell you a little bit more about the layout, as well as Dan from Silver Star Protection. But what I can tell you is that these types of uses typically break down their floor plan into 3 zones. The zone in green is a public access zone. It consists of the entry vestibule and waiting area. Here, a welcoming agent will welcome all customers. He or she will make sure that everyone has an ID via an ID scanner. Once they are confirmed, they will be scanned into the limited access area, which is essentially the sales floor area. And there's a door there that they will need to be scanned into once their ID has been confirmed. As I alluded to, the area shown in yellow is limited access. It consists of the sales floor, the point of sale, and the public restrooms. And you will need to be 21 years of age or older to be and credentialed to be allowed into that space. The restricted access area is shown in red. That includes the product storage vault, order fulfillment areas, product delivery, employee break room, restrooms, management offices, janitorial offices, IT rooms, basically everything that is considered kind of back of house. That is accessible to staff only, and all doors and entry points will require key card access to gain entrance. Next slide, please. Talking in terms of the exterior building, there are no, as I said, there are no modifications to the existing building aside from state statute mandated signage and other installation of other equipment, including surveillance and cameras. There are no plans to modify the site at all. Frosted window tints are typically installed, and that is a requirement of the state in order to provide an opaque screen so that you can't see inside the sales floor from outside. Signage in that matter will also comply with the village ordinance, and it also does need to comply with the Illinois Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act and other IDFPR guidelines. Next slide, please. Special uses, as you know, always have to they have to prove that a certain set of criteria are met in order for special uses to be essentially recommended approval. Based on the evidence provided in the application and presented here tonight, we believe and we agree with staff's report that the special use criteria found in Chapter 54, Article 9 of the Village of Bolingbrook Code, all of those criteria have been met based on this evidence. At this time, I'm going to introduce the applicant, Mr. Gregory Elliott, who will tell you more about Ivy Hall. We have David Berger here, who is also part of the operations team, who can speak more about the Ivy Hall brand as well. And we have Dan Farrell of Silver Star Protection, who can go over some of the security enhancements and protocols that will be put into place here at this location. Sure. Thank you.
I'll just pass this down.
Yeah, let me take that now. Let me start signing it now.
Yeah, it's fine.
Good evening. My name is Gregory Elliott. I am the president of World of Weed, which will be doing business in Illinois as Ivy Hall. As a social equity applicant, we were awarded several conditional adult use cannabis dispensary licenses in the state of Illinois. And Ivy Hall has extensive experience operating dispensaries in Illinois and nationally. We are very excited to be bringing our dispensary to Bolingbrook, and we're looking forward to being good stewards of the community. As stated, our hours of operations will be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. The 40 full and part-time employees that we anticipate hiring will all be subject to state and federal background checks. In addition, all staff will receive 10 hours of professional training every year, which exceeds the state-mandated 8 hours of training to be received every year. We will definitely focus on hiring local residents, and we offer competitive salaries and benefits. We also expect to contribute approximately $250,000 to $300,000 per year to the local sales tax base. And with that, I'll introduce Dan Farrell of Silver Star to go over our security protocols.
As Greg stated, my name is Dan Farrell. I'm with Silver Star Protection Group. We're at 3601 West Algonquin, Rolling Meadows, Illinois. So I represent a company that was started by my twin brother and myself in 2014, specifically to provide security services for cannabis companies. My brother's a retired U.S. Marshal, spent 24 years with the Marshal Service here in Chicago. Brings a lot of expertise from security. He's protected anything from judges, Supreme Court judges, witnesses. The last 15 years of his career, he was on the Federal Fugitive Task Force. Our company started in 2014 in Illinois. We've evolved into a company that has over 100 different cannabis locations that we provide security for across 3 states, Michigan, Illinois, and Missouri. So the first thing we try to do when we talk about security for Ivy Hall is, as Greg said, we want to be good stewards to the community. So what we'll do is reach out to the chief of police and the fire marshal, talk about ways we can work together with them, show them our security plan to make sure they're comfortable with it. Secondarily, we'll introduce ourselves to some of the neighboring businesses. We don't expect any problems. We want to make sure that if there is, they have a direct line of communication to us. The way we present our thought process for protecting cannabis clients is concentric circles of protection, meaning starting with the outside, if they break one, and they get in, there's a second level and a third level. So to describe that in a very simple formula is on the outside of the building, there's going to be very good lighting that has cameras on the outside of the building that have facial recognition and able to read license plates. All the perimeter, front and back cameras will have the technology, it's more higher megapixels. And then when we talk about the exterior of the building, we want to make sure it's impenetrable so that obviously the front door is reinforced. And then when you come in the front door, as Adam said, you come into the public access area, and that is where a receptionist will greet you. So they will come in and they check your driver's license. It's not like they look at it. They actually put it into a scanner, and it reads the barcode on the back of your driver's license, and it tells you that that person is 21 and that that license is valid. Once we identify that they're able to go into the limited access area, which is the point of sale, there's actually a key card access. So in order to go into the second limited access, you have to be key carded in and let in. Once you're in the second level, which is we call the limited access area, that's the point of sale. The one thing you need to know about that relative to any other retail store, there's no product there. So it's just, there could be packages, but there's nothing in them. So you'd be meted by a bud tender or a cannabis concierge. They would talk to you about the products you need. And then when you go up to the point of sale, there's a second identification that happens. You have to show your driver's license again. There are cameras on every inch of the interior of the building except for the bathrooms. By law, you can't have cameras in the bathrooms. So at the point of sale, there's going to be a camera above and a camera on the back wall to make sure that every part of that transaction that takes place is taking place on camera. So they check your ID, and then they take your order and they put it in a system. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a system in Illinois called BioTrack that tracks the product from the cultivation center. So the product gets an RFID tag. It follows it all the way to the dispensary. And then when it's rung up at the register, that product with that RFID tag is logged in the system, which protects against theft, loss, and diversion, so that it's very hard to take product or have it disappear at a dispensary. So all the transactions done under the cameras, and then they'll show the products on the camera. And then when the transaction's finished, it's actually sealed in a locked bag. They usually staple the receipt on there, and they tell the customer that you're not allowed to use this product in the store, outside the store. You can only use it when you get to your house. So then the person is let out of the facility, and then we monitor the cameras from the inside to make sure they don't loiter outside of the building. If they do, one of our officers will go out and ask them to leave. If we find that they're using product in the parking lot, we will call the police and have the police handle it. So each store will have a highly trained guard that is capable of providing great customer service skills, but also making sure we keep everybody safe. So when we've talked about the public access area, the limited access area, the restricted access area, the only people that can go back there are people that are badged by the state of Illinois. As Adam mentioned, you have to complete a fingerprint, background check, and get a badge for the state of Illinois to go into the back of the house where the vault is, so that there's only a certain number of people that go. And remember, the access controls keep an inventory of who comes and goes. So there's an inventory of who comes in and out of the back, especially the vault. The vault is going to be built to the DEA standards that should be impenetrable, and there has to be two people in the vault at the same time. You can never have one person in there. So that is where all the product is locked up at night and during the day, so it's not like it comes out on the shelves. At the end of the day, they lock the vault and leave it there overnight. So in addition to the cameras, we have motion detector, glass breaks, panic buttons behind the counters. You can have fobs, you can have them at the front door, and then the intrusion detection and burglar alarm system. So these facilities are very, very highly secure. They are compliant with the state to make sure that people that are only 21 can have the product, and that they are not meandering or loitering around the facility or using the product in areas they shouldn't. So to wrap it up, from a security standpoint, we've done this over 100 different locations. We bring best practices, and we want to ensure that this client is safe and compliant with the regulations in Illinois. Oh, yes. So all the video that is taken at a dispensary has to be stored for 90 days on-site and off-site. In addition to that, the Illinois State Police has access into those cameras at any time, so they can port into our cameras and see what's going on at the dispensary. Oh, yeah, and then on a regular basis, there are unannounced inspections from both the Illinois State Police and the IDPFR. So they come in and they make sure that we're adhering to they don't announce it, they show up, they make sure everybody's badge, credentials, and doing things the right ways. And at times, they will actually look in on the cameras to ensure that you're complying with the policies and regulations. So there's a tremendous amount of oversight to make sure you're operating at the level that they expect you to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you to Matt for setting this up. We've been wanting to be in Bolingbrook for a while, and we're glad that we found a location that works. One thing that hasn't been covered is the back of the building and the actual facility. The way that the restaurant is set up currently, the back is the best place for deliveries. So we're gonna be able to have the deliveries take place in the most secure way compared to most other dispensaries around the state, and that there'll be a very compliant and good way of being delivered, so that thing when there's product coming in or money going out. So being in Bolingbrook, the most important thing is being a good tenant with the community and working together and making sure that everything we do is compliant with the way that the city wants us to operate. So, aside from providing well-paying jobs, which will start, somewhere in the range of $30,000 for part-time up until $65,000 for some of the managers. all of whom will be eligible for benefits if they so choose. We also plan to make some sort of donation or some sort of partnership with the community to figure out how we can best serve the community and bring in, not only tax revenue, which we estimate to be about $250,000 to $350,000 per year, but also some sort of program where we can donate based on how the city views the best way to use the money is. So that's the end of our presentation, but if you guys have any questions, I can start, and as each one of us expertise can.
Sure.
jump
I
in.
have just a couple of quick questions. The products that are going to be sold at Ivy Hall, are they strictly medical, recreational, and what type of products will be sold? We've seen many different variations of THC-based products, gummy bears, chocolates, apples, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that definitely kind of tells us the clientele also that's going to be subject to, coming to the location.
Right. So this dispensary is an adult use dispensary. So there's two types in Illinois. There's 55 medical dispensaries that were originally awarded when the program was first launched in 2014. Those are the only ones that can sell medical product technically for a lower tax basis. So if you were to go to one of those 50, like if you were a medical patient in Illinois and you wanted to get the tax deduction, you have to go to one of those 55 dispensaries. So this dispensary will be all adult use,
Recreational,
recreational.
no medical.
So that said, so if you are a medical patient under the state of Illinois, we will give a discount to kind of offset the tax basis there. But it's not necessarily considered medical product. Any of the new adult licenses that are coming out are all going to be adult use, which are recreational. Now, we believe that this product which is identical to medical products that are sold at dispensaries, but the only differentiator there is the tax amount that's paid. So all of our products are considered medical products that would be available to any medical user.
Good.
Regarding your question in terms of products that are sold, so it's a wide range and there's new products coming to market, but for the most part, it's like the largest sellers is flour, which is considered of like loose flour, somewhere between a gram up until 7 grams. Then there's pre-rolled cigarettes, there's tinctures, there's edibles, there's vape cartridges, and then there's like balms and topicals.
I see. And paraphernalia as well.
Paraphernalia can be available. It's not typically the biggest seller of a store, so sometimes, it's not something that we push to sell, but it is available.
One last question regarding the security piece. I overheard the gentleman speaking about if there's somebody out loitering in the parking lot, the security guard would go out. How many security guards will be present at any given time?
There'll always be at least one security guard present at all times that the store is open.
One.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least.
And you feel that is sufficient?
Again, for the record, my name's Andrew Scott. Just to answer your question, to maybe elaborate a little bit on the security guard. First of all, I think it's important to note that they will be an armed security guard, and so that's number one. And yes, I think with Dan's and his team's experience, that during the normal business hours, during normal operations, one security guard is more than adequate to provide security not only for the employees and customers that come to the store, but also the surrounding area. But with that said, there are certain times of the year where it's going to be busier. 420, the Cannabis Cup, Black Friday, kind of some of the bigger days for cannabis sales. And just like any other business, David and his team and Greg, they're going to staff up and they're going to staff down to meet the demand. And what might that mean? That might mean having an additional security guard during those busier days. So I think it's really, they know the business, they know when the peaks are. So there may at times be 2 security guards on site during those busier periods, but generally it will be 1. I think another thing that's important to point out, just in terms of the service that is provided, is that there will always be a security guard on site whenever there is an employee in the building. And so, employees will generally get there an hour before opening, and there's also takes time to close the dispensary as well. So there will always be an armed security guard there, making sure that everybody is safe. And then particularly in the evening, when employees are walking to the car, the security guard will make sure that everybody gets safely to their vehicles and is able to go on their way.
Good. And your hours of operation, are they pretty consistent with the brand standard for cannabis dispensaries?
That is correct. It's actually less than what is permitted by state statute. The cannabis statute allows dispensaries to open up at 6 a.m. It just doesn't really, there's a lot of experience in terms of, when you want to be able to be available for customers, and the times that they're proposing, the 9 to 9 is, that's very consistent during the, general weekday hours, and then ramping up a little bit on the weekends.
Good. Any questions from the commission?
Yes. The security guards, are they typically LEOs? Are they law enforcement officers? Are they sworn personnel? I've seen in other communities where they're off-duty or retired.
We do have some LEOs, but that's not the norm. It's usually a licensed security guard, so everybody that's a security guard has to take a 20-hour unarmed, 20-hour armed class, and then they have to go through our personal training. We prefer ex-military. We hire a lot of veterans, but then there's also a good group of experienced experienced security guards that may be in the industry for 10 to 12 years. But I'd say probably 10 to 20% is LEO.
And then you mentioned LPR systems and the cameras in the exterior of the building.
Yep.
Are those accessible by the state also? And what do you guys do with that data? I mean, you're collecting those numbers, you're running them against somebody's database. Are you looking for what are you doing with that data, and are you retaining that data?
So by regulation, we have to retain the camera data for 90 days on-site and off-site. So
You're mandated to have
Correct.
LPR.
Yep, so we use an NVR, to
Okay.
tell you the truth, so a server. So we keep it on there. We don't mine it for any information at all. The only thing we do is keep it just in case we need to go back and look at any footage, should there have been a crime, should anything happen, if the police want to come in and see it, but we don't mine it for any data. By law in the state of Illinois, you cannot take any of your customers' data. They actually have to opt in to give you their data.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On the same note of the video, is this being uploaded via cloud to a server, or?
No.
So on-site, it'll stay on our server, and then off-site, it'll be on a cloud. So the backup's in the cloud.
Any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Tucker?
So Worldwide Inc. is just based out of Colorado, I believe. They have a social equity. You were granted a social equity license, I heard you say.
Correct. And we're actually based out of Washington State.
Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Which means it must be 51% owned with 10 or more staff.
Correct. Well, it's 51% owned by me, and I'm also a veteran.
Is there a reason you're operating under a DBA versus an LLC?
Well, we're going to be doing business as Ivy Hall, but Ivy Hall may end up being an LLC. But that name just markets better than World of Weed. World of Weed's a little too on the nose, so Ivy Hall is much more palatable for us.
You're operating as Ivy Hall in many places around the country,
We'll be.
including a couple here in Illinois. I believe in Naperville and Waukegan, if I'm
Correct. We have those locations as well. Not open yet, but we have them.
Yeah. I want to get back to the revenue.
Okay.
I heard 350,000. Since there is an economic component
Right.
issue to all this, determines what's best for the village. Was that before taxes or after taxes?
Well, so that's the amount that we think that we're gonna pay the village as the municipal tax. So let's say the village municipal tax rate is 3%. So if we're gonna generate $10 million a year in revenue, we're gonna pay $300,000 to the village.
The average dispensary is averaging $2 million
That's probably 2 million a month.
2 million a month?
Yeah. So right now, the average dispensary makes between 10 and $25 million a year in Illinois. So we're taking the average, like let's say the average dispensary, there's 110 operating dispensaries right now. Of the new 185 licenses that were awarded, none of them are operational yet. So if you're gonna take a weighted average cost, we expect that this dispensary will generate between $8 and $12 million annually. So that's how we got those figures for the tax revenue.
There's a different tax base for the type of product that is dispensed, right?
Yes, but those tax rates are those are charged to the consumers. So Illinois has a graduated tax based on potency. So if a product is, and I'm not exactly sure of the exact numbers, but there's 3 different tax ranges, but those are the costs that are sent to the consumer. That isn't actually revenue that the facility is generating. So depending on the potency of a product will be how much the consumer is taxed.
Yes, the level of THC,
Correct.
that's 35% or not. How will you differentiate between the quantities meted out to residents and non-residents? The number of grams are different.
Correct. So a non-resident, so a resident is able to purchase up to 30 grams of cannabis, I think, and then a non-resident is up to 15. Correct.
Yes.
And so we're able to justify that and to make sure that as we double check the IDs. So as a consumer enters the store, the security guard at the front or the receptionist will check the ID, and then as they go to make the purchase, they'll have the second ID check, and that's when they're going to be able to see how much they're able to purchase.
So with 15, the market is, so your 5-year plan shows that the market is expected to be, what, 30 to 100 billion countrywide at some point, right?
Right.
And in terms of Bolingbrook, your 5-year plan shows what? 30 million by 5 years. So we'll be netting $1 million then in municipal revenues.
Yeah, give or take, yes.
Confident of that.
Yes, and another thing is that the dispensary in Romeoville is moving, so we think that not only is this a really good area based on the demographics and the traffic, but once that dispensary leaves, which is initially a medical dispensary, we'll be able to drive more traffic to the store.
Great. That's good.
Any further questions?
I have one question. Your other dispensaries that you have, are they as close to the proximity of all the homes that you have right across the street?
Yeah, I mean, there are some, like, there's one that there's apartments across the street directly from a dispensary, yes.
Which one is that?
That's one in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago that we're doing.
But your suburban, let me reword the question, the suburban locations, they're not as close to a residential area.
It kind of depends, but they all fit within the zoning criteria.
Anything else? The commission?
I can add to that as well regarding the distance to the residential. This is a pretty good exhibit. I want to go back to.
What you want to go to?
Back to one. There you go. Yeah, that was something we were talking about this existing residential.
Yeah,
area,
right.
Yeah.
Which one did you want?
This one here. So one of the things, and we can talk about the next one, in terms of connectivity, obviously Bolingbrook Road is a state highway in this location. There's also a considerable 26-inch median with, it's grade separate essentially, so it's a raised median in that location. So not only are we talking about up to like 170-foot total right-of-way for the state highway, but there is also considerable setbacks, particularly along the east side of the road. That existing berms is another 74 feet. So visually, if we're talking from facade to facade of the nearest homes, we're over 350 feet of total distance from facade to facade. And we're also talking about other kind of layered visual barriers in between those, including the existing berm, as I said, the state highway, the raised median with a pretty substantial buffer of trees down the existing median, and then another landscape buffer here along the west side of the road. From a connectivity standpoint, this exhibit here shows the existing kind of sidewalks in the area. This green belt here shows the landscape median down the center of Bolingbrook Drive. There's not a lot of opportunity for pedestrians or, say, children to kind of cross between the two areas, with the exception of Lily Cash Lane, where there is a pedestrian crossing here at the light. There is that crossing here, but there are no sidewalks beyond here, which leads into this gas station. There's a kind of a U-shaped sidewalk here. There is no sidewalk here, and there are no crossings, obviously here because of the landscape median. There are no crossings here at this location to get from the east side of the street to the west side of the street, or back up to the subject property. And then as you get here, we're talking about the interstate I-55, so obviously there's no pedestrian crossings here. So from a visual standpoint and from a physical standpoint, there are multiple layers of obstructions and barriers between the existing residential and the subject property.
I would just add to it. Obviously, the required public notice sign has been up on the property, and we've notified the residents of Beacon Ridge, as well as the HOA. I didn't receive a phone call from any of the residents, so I would have brought that to you if I did. But the reason why we did not have a setback to residential within our ordinance is because the majority of the time, commercial does somewhat abut residential in most situations. So once we made the decision to open up the door to a dispensary, if I layered that in with residential, it would drastically impact the areas that it would be allowed in. So that's why it's a case-by-case basis and it's a special use. But you know, we did the due diligence and reached out to them, and I haven't received a response.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from the commissioners?
You did mention that you guys are open Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays?
It's in the staff report.
Yeah, so it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays.
Yeah, well, Matt. Matt, why is it a special use if everything's okay?
Well, because it ultimately gives the ability for the village and for the plan commission to weigh in on all the decisions when it comes to cannabis. So
So it's just a special use because it's cannabis?
absolutely.
Okay.
And to be honest, I mean, with the security that's involved with it, I would personally, if I was a resident, live next to this more than a liquor store, in my opinion. So liquor stores aren't special uses, where we've kind of pushed these in to make it even more of a process for them to go through, so that we have control over it. Ultimately, if they were to fail or you know, not live up to any of the qualifications within that, then we have the ability to pull their special use permit. Whereas if it's a business license, it's a little bit different.
Commissioner Tucker?
Is the land being leased or is it sold, Matt?
That one's for you. They are purchasing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry to be such a nuisance.
You're not.
You know, this is our first foray
Correct.
into this type of thing. Can we talk a little and someone address perhaps the societal cost, pros and cons of why dispensary is necessary or not?
So, you know, as many of you may or may not know, there's an opiate epidemic going on in the country right now. sorry. There's an opioid epidemic going on in the country right now where there's people that are reliant on prescription drugs and, you know, they're doing crazy things to get their hands on them. Also, alcohol is a nuisance, and cannabis has a lot of healing properties. So people are going to be able to have safe access to reliable cannabis product, as opposed to going to a third party that might not be licensed, might not be oversought by the state or any governing body to make sure that it's safe and compliant. And so when you take that also with the fentanyl crisis and everything else going on in the country, having access to safe cannabis is better than not having access to it, because if people are going to do it, they're going to do it anyways, and they might as well buy it from a reputable purchaser. And
Yeah, we know the societal cost for alcohol is over 200 billion, and the same for smoking. Marijuana is yet to be determined. While it has some healing propensities, how do you? It takes 30 to 60 minutes to feel the effects when one ingests. And any delayed actions give rise to further use, which has an effect on short-term memory. I mean, after all, this is THC, it's tetrahydrocannabinol, right? Some of these products do have THC in them.
yes, most of them do. That's the barrier to entry here.
How do you weigh that into your doing business?
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
So I think one thing that didn't get mentioned during the course of the discussion, there is robust training that goes on for all the employees that work within the dispensary. And the customers that come to dispensaries range from people who know exactly what they want, at what dosage levels, and at what quantities, all the way to folks that haven't tried it. And so an important component of the training that goes on for all of the Ivy Hall employees is to be able to sit with new customers and to explain to them, just what you said, that if you eat a 5 milligram gummy, it's going to take 30 to 60 minutes before you feel anything. Don't drop another one. And so really there's a large educational component around new customers coming into the dispensary and familiarizing them with the different products. And there's a range of different flowers, there's a range of different dosages. Again, it's an educational component that David and Greg and their team will offer to make sure that customers know the products that they're buying, know what they're getting into, and have an enjoyable experience.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Do you have any questions from the audience? Any correspondence? Hearing none. Seeing none. Do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Shay.
Second.
Commissioner Shea, second Vice Chair Cooper.
Did we get everyone?
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper?
Yes.
Chair Ali?
Yes. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to the approval of the special use permit for a cannabis dispensary and adoptions of findings of fact, project number 422.22. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Shea. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker?
Here.
Commissioner Shank?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper?
Yes.
Chair Ali?
Yes, thank you. We have in front of us a special use permit for a cannabis dispensary, Ivy Hall, located at 361 South Bolingbrook Drive, project number 422.22. May I have a motion to approve?
So move, Shay.
Commissioner Shea,
Second?
second Commissioner Cooper. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes, we stand approved. Congratulations. Welcome to Bolingbrook.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, we have a special use permit for a planned development, Illinois Safety, located at 595 North Pinecrest Road, Suite D2, project number 423.22. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Here.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes. Mr. Eastman, you have the floor.
Thank you. The applicant is here before you tonight to request approval of a special use permit for a planned development in order to allow a commercial school at 595 D2 North Pinecrest Road. The subject property comprises approximately .89 acres and is currently developed as a multi-tenant mixed-use development, commonly known as the Boughton Plaza. It's currently zoned B2, community retail. Access to the property is from a direct point of access off Pinecrest Road. The shopping center does have adequate parking for the proposed use. However, per the zoning ordinance, a commercial school is not listed as a permitted use within the B2 zoning district. As such, the applicant is requesting a special use to allow a commercial school, commonly known as Illinois Safety, at 595 D2 North Pinecrest Road. Per the applicant, Illinois Safety was established in 2016 as an American Heart Association training site that provides certified training in first aid, CPR, AED, and more advanced courses. The instructors are full-time union firefighters and paramedics from the Chicagoland area that teach on their days off. Per the applicant, they would host 3 to 4 classes per week, and they would start between 8 to 9:30 a.m. and conclude between the hours of 12 and 2:30 p.m. with 7 to 8 customers per class. Per the applicant, they currently have 20 employees/instructors. Staff recommends approval of special use permit for a planned development to allow a commercial school, commonly known as Illinois Safety, at 595 D2 North Pinecrest Road, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. Do you have any questions from the commission? No? Okay. Any correspondence from the audience? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Shay.
Second.
Commissioner
Flores.
Shea, second Commissioner Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes. PC 22.15, approval of a special use permit for a planned development and adoptions of findings of fact, project number 423.22. May I have a motion to approve the findings of fact?
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Cooper. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes. Special use permit for a planned development, Illinois Safety, located at 595 North Pinecrest Road, Suite D2, project number 423.22. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second.
Commissioner Cooper, second Commissioner Shea. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes, thank you. Next item on the agenda, text amendment to the zoning ordinance Articles 1 and 2 for the purposes of regulating motor freight terminals in industrial districts in the village of Bolingbrook, project number 424.22. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Wright, second Commissioner Flores. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Tucker,
Here.
Commissioner Shank,
Yes.
Commissioner Shea,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cooper,
Yes.
Chair Ali.
Yes, Mr. Eastman, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to present an amendment to section 54-2, which is the definition section of the municipal code of the zoning ordinance. as well as subsection A and B of 54-142 and 54-143, which is the permitted and special uses set forth for the I-1 and I-2 zoning districts. We're proposing the following amendments to help strengthen policies, clarify, and provide language to coordinate with the intent of the zoning ordinance, specifically as it relates to regulating motor freight terminals and truck parking facilities within the village's industrial corridor, and generally conduct housekeeping. The first two things was establishing, one, a definition for a parking facility, as well as amending the current definition of motor freight terminal. We've had some issues where people are trying to determine that a motor freight terminal can also just be a lot that is just for truck parking, which that is not the intent. A motor freight terminal, in my mind, has a building on it. So by doing this language, it kind of cleans that up and separates the two uses. First would be the truck parking facility. This is the use of land for parking or storing in the access of 5 trucks, semi-trailers, tractor, or trailer units for a fee. Obviously, so this is not just your typical trucks that are outside of an industrial building. This is a specific truck parking facility. And then to amend the motor freight terminal definition, it'll read as follows: the principal use of a structure for the interchange and routing in intrastate and interstate shipment by truck. Motor freight terminal does not include the use of land for parking or storage of trucks, semi-trailers, tractors, or trailer units for a fee. So clearly defining the two different uses. Staff is proposing to amend the following item as a permitted use within the I-1 zoning district. Number 2 is currently reads wholesaling and warehousing, including local cartage and express facilities, as well as motor freight terminals. I'm asking to strike that and put motor freight terminals into the special use category for the I-1. And then I'm looking to do the exact same thing under the I-2 zoning district. So strike motor freight terminals in the permitted uses, and then include both motor freight terminal and truck parking facilities as special uses within subsection B of I-2. Therefore, if those uses came before us, I would be presenting that information to you before they were able to operate. That said, I am recommending approval of the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. Any questions from the commissioners?
So are they in and out, in and out, motor freight?
Yeah, so a lot of what we see, obviously, we have a high number of industrial users in the area. And we know with industrial comes trucks, and what we're finding is that they're trying to capture any land that they can and ask to park trucks on it. Well, there are certain areas in my mind, and I would hope a lot of you guys share that sentiment, that we don't want trucks next to residential or next to some of our commercial areas. We like those more in our industrial areas. So by doing this, it kind of puts them in specific zones, specifically the I-2 district, which is heavy industrial. That way, if they want to find any other piece of property that they want to park trucks on, if it's not zoned I-2, it's a special use. And even if it is I-2, it's actually a special use, but I-2 is the only area that's permitted under the special use. So it's just a way to, have some control over the truck parking. Some of it is high-end, and I would consider some of it not so high-end. A lot of the time, they want to just take a gravel parking lot and start parking trucks on it, and they don't want to, put down the pavement, curbs, drainage, all that type of stuff. So by doing this, it gives us a level of protection.
So this is an actual ongoing problem?
Well, we've had 2 different instances where someone's decided to say that a motor freight terminal is what, in their mind, a truck parking facility. And they never moved forward with an application, but
See it coming?
I just would rather clean it up.
Fair enough.
Just for clarification for our listening audience, give us some examples of what would be
A motor
between the
freight?
two.
So a motor freight terminal, I don't know if you're familiar with a company called like Roadrunner. Very long rectangular buildings where trucks pull in one side, they either load or unload a load, and then you can actually go out the other side of the building. So you actually drive through the building. And then